Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at Special Booster 2.0, and that set offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is one that has been a long time coming, because we've been slowly amassing the pieces in order to make it. We finally have enough cards to actually piece it all together, that being the Lucemon deck. But Lucemon, for all intents and purposes, is a control deck that's similar to how Security Control of the olden days once played. So if anyone's unfamiliar with Security Control, the idea was you're just trying to recover as much as possible and remove the threats as they're going to be coming, and Lucemon does that in strides. So the main game plan is, like most purple decks, to try to fill up your trash, to use your trash as a secondary resource, not only to put cards in to trigger specific abilities, but to pull cards out of, so that way you have the most capabilities off of how you could utilize your cards in the most efficient ways. But essentially what a lot of your cards are doing is just try to put the opponent in disadvantageous situations, so they do get to try to choose what negative downside they're going to be incurring, but they're going to be incurring some negative effect when you're going to be playing out your cards most of the time. The biggest weakness of the deck, however, is the fact that it is a little bit on the expensive side, both monetarily and when it comes to the actual cost of your cards to use in-game. So the opponent could take advantage of that cost to be able to try to accelerate their game plan faster than it normally would, so games could potentially be more explosive and end quicker, and you're really just hoping that the opponent doesn't actually have the ability to try to out-aggro you with all of the extra memory you're probably going to be giving them. But that's not saying that the deck isn't great. It does have a lot of things going for it. It's just there are also certain decks in the meta that are kind of keeping it from hitting a tier 1 status. But as far as what the actual deck is doing, let's just dive right into the deck profile and see what we're working with. Starting off with the Digi-Eggs, I'm only going to be running 4 copies of the BT18 Cupimon because this is just the de facto best egg for what this deck is trying to do for a couple of different reasons. One, we do actually care about the Cupimon name when it comes to the level 3s. 2, we actually do care about its color. And 3, we also care about the inheritable ability to help set us up. And then when it comes to the level 3s, I'm just going to be running an all Lucemon lineup with a little bit of Ukamon support. So the 4 copies of the BT18 Ukamon is just one of the best, if not the best rookie in the entire game, because for any deck he's in, he's acting as a really good consistency tool, while also being a good magnet, a good chipping tool, and his ability also could be recursive if he's left alone, and you're able to cycle and turbo out your raising areas. And then when it comes to the rest of the Lucemons, I'm going to be keeping it simple with 1 copy of the BT4 Lucemon, because this one is less useful than the other 2 that we're going to be running, just because we actually can't Digivolve him in our raising area, so we're always going to be hard playing him, but if our trash is nice and full, then we still get to hard play him for essentially a play cost of 5, and his on-play ability is pretty good at just a generic recovery. But when it comes to the other 2 Lucemons, they're a little bit more important because they both can Digivolve on top of Cupimons for 5, so that way we do have alternative ways to be able to play them. So that way we do have alternative ways to be able to use the cards in our raising area. But when it comes to the BT18 Lucemon, this one doesn't necessarily have the ability to reduce its own play cost, so this is going to be the ideal one we're going to want to use in our raising area. And he even comes with a start of main phase ability, so that way we can actually get this effect off when he's moved out of our raising area, where we get to trash 1 card in our hand, and then the opponent gets to trash the top card of their security, and if they didn't trash anything, then we get to recover. So it's allowing us to try to help set up ourselves a little bit easier, while forcing the opponent to either start losing security or increasing our security, and the more our security is increased, the more dangerous this type of a deck gets. Then he also has an ability that triggers at the end of our turn, where we get to place a level 6 Digimon as the top card of our security stack to be able to Digivolve into a Chaos Mode from our trash for free. Then, on top of that, the most important level 3 of the whole deck is going to be the 4 copies of EX6 Lucemon, because this actually does have a way to reduce his play cost, so that way we have even more ways to use them compared to the other two, because as long as we don't have a level 5 or lower Digimon in play, then we get to hard play him for 5, which is really nice, and he has a nice start of main phase and on playability, again, having the same level of usability as the other two, where he's going to basically be another consistency tool, looking more specifically for Angels, Archangels, 3 Great Angels, and 7 Great Demon Lord traded cards. And then we get to trash the ones that we don't pick, which helps fuel our trash for whatever we need. Then he has that same end of turn ability as the BT18 Lucemon, so that way, again, we just have more ways to be able to utilize our cards. Then we're not going to be utilizing any level 4s, and we're just going to skip right up into our level 5s, which is going to be an all Lucemon Chaos Mode lineup. So Lucemon Chaos Mode, both from BT18 and EX6, can Digivolve on top of our level 3 Lucemons for a cost of 6, so that way we could skip the stages, even though they do have abilities that allow us to Digivolve. Just more ways to use the card is never a bad thing. Then they both have a really decent on-play and when Digivolving ability, where your opponent gets to choose to either delete one of their Digimon or Tamers, and then if nothing is deleted, then we get to trash a card from their security stack and recover 1, which is really good to be able to keep up the pressure and try to control the field or make our security that much harder to fight through. But where they differ is in their secondary ability, where the BT18 is definitely not as strong as the EX6 counterpart. So BT18 isn't bad, it's just a simple all turns ability, where when this Digimon would leave the battle area, we get to trash the bottom card of our security for him to keep himself around, so he has his own built-in protection, where the EX6 counterpart allows us to be able to return a Lucemon from its Digivolution source or our trash to the bottom of our deck to play out a Satan mode or a level 6 Demon Lord traded Digimon from our trash for free. So even though he's not protecting himself per se, it's just allowing us to be able to spawn a level 6, which is still really good because we could do lots of different things with our level 6s. And speaking of our level 6s, I'm going to be running a good mix of level 6s, mostly in the Lucemon archetype, but a couple of cards outside of that because, well, Lucemon doesn't need to exactly stay inside of his lane in order for other cards to be really effective. So when it comes to the outside resources, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Shadow Seraphimon Ace because, well, our Lucemons are going to be relatively sticky and resilient, so that does give us the opportunity to use them alternatively, like for any Ace Digimon. And Seraphimon Ace is a 3 Great Angel, so it is searchable inside of the deck, and this is a really good defensive tool because it has the blocker ability, it has a nice on-play and when Digivolving ability to de-Digivolve 3 on one of the opponent's Digimon, which is a really good form of soft removal to try to out specific threats you might not otherwise, and his all turns ability is also really good because when an attack target is changed, then one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 5,000 DP, so he's just a powerhouse when it comes to defensive capabilities. Then when it comes to the other off-brand level 6 Digimon, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Leviamon. So Leviamon is a 7 Great Demon Lord that we could use with some of our 7 Great Demon Lord synergy cards, and he's just another really strong card in of himself because of his security attack +1 that he has native to him, but the more important aspect is his on-play and when Digivolving ability, where if the opponent has as many or more total Digimon or Tamers as you, then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon of the highest level, and then we also get to delete one of the lowest level, potentially removing 2 Digimon at once. And then his all turns ability is really nice to combo with that deletion because when an opponent's Digimon is deleted, we get to gain a memory for each Digimon that's deleted. Then when it comes to the more on-brand side of things, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Lucemon X Antibody. So Lucemon does have a really strong X Antibody Digimon, where during all turns, when this Digimon would leave the battle area, if Lucemon is in this Digimon's Digivolution source, we get to trash the top card of both players' security for him to just not leave, again, making him a very sticky and resilient body. Then he also has a nice ability that triggers at the end of your turn, where your opponent gets to choose to either trash the top card of their security, and if they didn't, then we get to recover and delete one of their Digimon or Tamers. So again, it's putting them in a really bad spot to where they're either going to be losing their security, making it easier for us to win, or they're going to be losing cards on their field while giving us the security, making it harder for them to win. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Lucemon Larva. It does have a security ability where we get to play a Lucemon from our trash for free, which is really good at being able to reuse our low-level Lucemons. And then he also has an ability that triggers in our breeding area, where during all turns, when one of our Lucemon Satan modes would leave the battle area, by moving this Digimon into the battle area, then it doesn't leave. So that way, if it's caught in our raising area, which we do have a way to set it up in there, then we could potentially protect one of the main boss monsters for the deck. Then it also has a nice all turns ability where while we have a non-white Digimon with Lucemon in its name on our field, then none of our Digimon with 0 DP can be deleted. This is by battle, this is by card effects, this is by DP reduction. It's just a general effect that keeps our Digimon from being deleted, which is really good forms of protection considering this Digimon natively has 0 DP, so that's how this card is actually going to be sticking around. But the fact that it's not going to be deleted means that we could do some really fun and interesting things to better support this type of ability. And then when it comes to the level 7s, I am going to be running 1 copy of Lucemon Satan mode. So this card is really good, but the deck doesn't always need to go up into him in order to win the game. He's just helping win the game more. So he has a nice when digivolving ability where we get to place a Lucemon Larva from our trash to an empty spot into our raising area, and then if we do, we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers. So this is how Larva is going to be setting up to protect Satan mode, and this also is good removal in of itself, especially being able to get rid of pesky Tamers that might cause us some problems. Then he also has an end of all turns ability, so this is going to be triggering a lot, where we get to trash the top card of the opponent's security stack, and if we didn't trash anything, then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon and one of their Tamers, so that way we could potentially put them in that much of a disadvantageous situation to where they reasonably wouldn't be able to stop us from winning the game. And then when it comes to the Tamers, this is kind of where the deck gets a little bit flexible, because you do generally want to run like 3 to 4 of some Tamers. So most people are probably going to elect to go for a couple of purple Tamers just because of the high levels of synergy and usability with what the purple Tamers can offer us, but I'm electing to go with 3 copies of Shoto because we could do really fun things with high numbers because our Digimon are just supposedly that much stronger than the opponents on average. So this is going to be a good card to help us gain some extra memory. As long as the opponent has a Digimon, we get to just gain that extra memory. And then at the end of our turn, we get to suspend this Tamer to give one of our Digimon Piercing and Blocker. We only care mostly about the blocker because, again, having a 10k blocker as early as like turn 2 is still pretty decent at being able to turn off the opponent's potential aggression. Or if we use this later in the game, we could slap this on Larva for basically an indestructible blocker. And then when it comes to the options, we're going to be running a wide spread of options, most of which we want to hope triggers from our security to try to disrupt the opponent, and we have lots of really good options both supporting Lucemon and just supporting the deck in general. So the ones I'm highlighting here are going to be more specifically the Lucemon support. So I'm going to be running 3 copies of Dead or Alive because this card allows us to be able to play out a level 5 Digimon from our trash for free. Then if there are 10 or more cards in our trash, we also get to play out a Digimon with Lucemon in its name instead. So this can hit any of our level 5s, 6s, and 7s as long as they have Lucemon in their name when we have a nice full trash. Otherwise, it's going to be bringing back our Chaos mode 9 out of 10 times, which the Chaos modes are all still pretty decent in their own rights. Then I'm going to be running 2 copies of Gospel of the Fallen Angel as a really decent setup card. So its main ability allows us to digivolve our egg into a Lucemon from our trash for free, which is really nice at being able to recycle and reuse whatever Lucemon we feel like we want to. Then this card is placed into the battle area, so we could use its secondary main ability delayed, so we could bank it for another turn, where we get to digivolve one of our Digimon with Lucemon in its name into a Digimon with Lucemon in its name from our trash, with the Digivolution cost reduced by 3, and then we get to trash one of the opponent's options in the battle area. So if the opponent is sitting on a delayed based option, not only are we going to evolve a little bit cheaper into our Lucemon to further disrupt the opponent, but the fact that we actually do have a card to interact with those delayed options, which can be really powerful and problematic, really can hurt the opponent's overall tempo. And then the last Lucemon based option I'm going to be using is 3 copies of 7th Divine Cruise. So this is just the card that's interacting with Lucemon X Antibody more specifically, because while this card is in our trash, when we digivolve into a Lucemon X Antibody, we get to return this card to the bottom of our deck, and then the opponent trashes the top card of their security, and if nothing was trashed, then we get to recover 1. And then its main ability isn't too bad either, where we get to delete the opponent's Digimon until they have as many cards as we do in our security. And then if this effect didn't delete anything, then we still get to recover 1, allowing us to try to delete and remove the opponent's Digimon or just buffer our security. And its security ability isn't bad either, where it allows us to play a Lucemon from our trash for free. Bringing back a level 3 means that most likely we're going to end up recovering again, so that way it's just more security buffer overall. Then when it comes to the more generic support options, I'm only going to be running 2 of them, and that's going to be 4 copies of Darkness Wave. So Darkness Wave is an absolutely insane card for this deck, because not only is it a very low play costed card, but it helps with the deck's overall speed in its setup, because we get to trash the top 3 cards of our deck, and then if we have a yellow Digimon in play, then we get to return a yellow or purple Digimon from our trash to our hand, so that way we can pick and choose out of our trash what we want to try to recycle. Then the last option and card of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Biting Crush. So we already are going to want to play Leviamon, because Lucemon Chaos Mode from EX6 can bring out the Leviamon from our trash when it would potentially leave the field. So Biting Crush is just another really good card to play alongside of that, because its main ability allows us to discard a card from our hand and delete one of the opponent's level 6 or lower Digimon. And if we trash a 7 Great Demon Lord traded card, which we do have a couple of different cards in our deck with that trait, then we get to put this card into the battle area to use it for its delay ability during all turns when an effect plays out an opponent's Digimon. That allows us to be able to play out a Leviamon from our trash for free, so that way we have more ways to be able to control the field and play out our Leviamons. But for the most part, that's just my interpretation of the deck, and there is a couple of different ways that you could go about building the deck, because you could try to double down on Satan mode, or you could kind of exclude them altogether and kind of double down on the level 5s and 6s instead. So there is multiple different routes and paths on top of cards that you could potentially play with, all depending on what you have access to and what you want to try to support and prioritize, on top of where you think the meta would be and what build and iteration you think would better counter that meta. And just to note, there are just a couple of other useful cards that we could think about utilizing to be able to get you into that position for the deck to perform at its utmost capacity. And it's not like the deck isn't left without any potential future upgrades, because we do have some decent indirect support that we could lean into, on top of any potential future Demon Lord support that we can utilize as well. But that's it for the most part in terms of this video. So if you want, feel free to tell me your thoughts about the deck down in the comments below. And while you're down there, you might as well leave a like and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you know when my videos go live next, if you found this to be helpful and informative and want more potential content. And with that, I hope to see everyone in the next video.